Honourable Speaker of Parliament, the Honourable Acting Chief Justice, and Honourable Members of the Judiciary, Honourable Prime Minister, Honourable Deputy Prime Ministers, Honourable Cabinet Ministers and Assistant Ministers, Honourable Leader of Opposition, Honourable Members of Parliament, Your Excellencies, High Commissioners, Ambassadors, and members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Milsa Mbulasia, and a very good morning to you all. Please allow me to acknowledge and greet our people and friends joining us this morning via television, live streaming on the Parliament website and Facebook page, or on the Wallis app or radio. I thank you all for your keen interest in viewing the State of Parliament. It is a privilege and great pleasure for me this morning to open the 2023-2024 session of Parliament. Honourable Speaker and Honourable Members of Parliament, since November 2021, when I last addressed this August House, our nation was at the tail end of efforts to address the global pandemic, natural disaster, and a period of uncertainty, distress, and loss that gripped our nation. The past 3 years have indeed been a challenge for us all. As always, we have risen to the challenges and demonstrated our resilience as a nation and one people. As we grapple with ongoing and emerging challenges, I urge this August House to embody the collective spirit of resilience and resolve of our people. This will bring up a promising future for our citizens of our beloved nation, which we all call home. Now, more than ever, we must be united as one nation and strengthen our resolve to work together to meet our collective challenges. We must continue to look after each other, especially those less fortunate and the most vulnerable members of our society. Last December, our nation went to the polls. Our people cast their vote, exercising their civic duty and constitutional right to choose their government. Unfortunately, the low turnout of voters was discouraging. I hope more eligible voters will ensure that they are properly registered and make time to vote. This will ensure our voices are heard by voting in the next general elections in 2026. Since the result was announced, a new coalition government has been sworn in, and today we gather to begin our work in earnest with the opening in the Parliament session. At this juncture, I am grateful to note that the change in government has taken place peacefully and swiftly as the new administration has commenced its work and the mandate of the people. I must acknowledge the contribution and achievements of the previous government in steering the nation in the past 16 years. On the same note, we congratulate the People's Coalition Government. You now have the responsibility of leading our nation in the next 4 years. It is my privilege and duty this morning as your President to announce the policies, intentions, and some of the proposed legislation of the People's Coalition Government. We are now moving into an era of uncertainty and rapid change due to the current geopolitical environment caused by the war in Ukraine and the US-China tensions, which has very much affected global trade. As a small island state, the impact of such events will be much greater on Fiji and her people. Your government's mission is to build unity through social cohesion and further improve and strengthen our economy through sustainable growth, with the ultimate objective of improving lives of all the people of Fiji. There must be clear focus on the rule of law and democratic processes, including transparency, accountability, respect for human rights and freedoms, and listening to the views of the people through genuine consultations. The views of all members of our communities must be heard, and I urge the People's Coalition Government to ensure all initiatives and draft legislations must undergo thorough consultation process for better outcomes to ensure inclusiveness and foster greater ownership. Government must ensure that the draft laws are deliberated in consultation with relevant stakeholders, particularly through the standing committee process. Petitions must be accommodated so that the voice of the people is heard in Parliament when they seek solutions to issues that are of concern to them. The government must continue to adhere to the constitutional doctrine of the separation of powers as the cornerstone of our democracy and the necessity for public servants to perform their duties independently. Within the civil service, there will be more human resource and institutional capacity building to improve the service delivery to ordinary people and for civil servants to have a clear career path. The Public Service Commission will be given greater powers within the existing constitutional framework as a central coordinating agency on all human resource matters within the public service. Operating framework and guidelines across the service will foster more collegiality and coordination for greater efficiency and productivity. Decisions taken by Cabinet will be announced so that the people of Fiji are well informed of actions taken by the coalition government. The Honourable Prime Minister announced earlier this week that a resolution of Cabinet on decision-making processes that will be adopted to ensure transparency and accountability. An example of this is that residents of municipalities will soon have the opportunity to choose their own representatives in elections for city and town councils. Democracy will be broadened and localized further with the empowerment of rural communities to choose their advisory councillors through elections. The councillors are the vital link in gathering data and deploying assistance to our rural communities. On the pressing issues facing the nation, particularly on the economy, government must recognize that the private sector is a critical driver for economic growth. They need freedom and flexibility to perform their aims, but they must operate within the law and respect the environment. Government must put into place necessary measures so that there is a level playing field of certainty and consistency of policies that will boost confidence across the board. The government will work in partnership with all stakeholders, vis-à-vis the private sector, the trade unions, civil society organizations, and traditional institutions, in working together to grow and diversify our economy. To do this, the government must get its own economic house in order. By July this year, it is anticipated that our national debt will reach the $10 billion mark. This represents approximately 85% of our GDP. There is another $1.8 billion in contingent liabilities. These are mainly in form of loan guarantees, some of which are expected to be called up. This amount to around 15% of the GDP. The debt levels severely limits coalition government's capacity to borrow further for critical expenditure infrastructure such as roads, ports, hospitals, water and sewage. Our national debt also restricts government's ability to direct spending into key areas such as education, health and social welfare payments. As a small nation with narrow resource-based economy, prone to natural disasters and geographically isolated, it is important that we must continue to take a cautious approach as we face the headwinds. We have been reminded of these challenges on many occasions. At the same time, government must foster and strengthen bilateral and multilateral relations with our close neighbors to attract much-needed development, assistance and trade access. In the first month in office, the government has been responding to urgent demands while assessing the state of our finances and reprioritizing and redeveloping funds for urgent and critical needs. It will be necessary for the next few months to embark on a comprehensive financial review. The focus will be on consolidating government finance to improve revenues and reduce waste and mismanagement in expenditure so that the limited resources can be directed to priority areas. Government will also concentrate on building confidence and trust with business and investors with regards to future policy and legislative initiatives and incentives. Trade policies will aim to enhance diversification by increasing new products and markets. To do this, will require building competitive advantage through incentives and other incentives to bring new products to the market. The important role in economic recovery of micro, small and medium enterprises is also recognized they can serve the local and export trade. Advisory and development services will be made available. The MSME bill to serve the needs of the sector and will be finalized. New efforts will be directed in revitalizing the cooperatives movement. The Cooperatives Act will be reformed and updated for better organizations and outcomes. New supporting programs will be considered for women, youth, and people with disabilities. There are renewed efforts to revive the sugar industry, which provides a livelihood for a fair share of our population, particularly farmers and landowners. Plans are currently being formulated to increase cane planting, production and harvesting with improved mechanization. Government will establish a special parliamentary committee on the sugar sector to set clear and tangible strategies and targets. Farmers and landowners will be brought back into the organizational structure of the industry. Government must respect the human rights of every person in Fiji as guaranteed in the Constitution of the Republic of Fiji 2013, as well as the rights of all communities in Fiji. We must also recognize the rights of the first peoples of this nation, or the Itauke and the people of Rotuma, as guaranteed in international agreements like the International Labour Organization Convention number 169 on the rights of Indigenous and tribal peoples, as well as the United Nations Declaration on Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Indigenous rights are a category of human rights similar to women's rights, the rights of the disabled and the rights of the children. In recognizing these rights, government does not seek to place Indigenous rights above the rights of members of our minority ethnic communities, given the indivisibility and the equality of human rights. The Great Council of Chiefs, traditionally the apex of the UNWA, is to be re-established. Its first meeting will take place in late May. The government will undertake consultation and preparatory work before bringing the relevant bills to this House. I am reminded by the words of the late Justice Jai Ramreddy, who addressed the Council of Chiefs in 1997 as the leader of opposition. He asked the chiefs to consider themselves leaders, not just of the Itauke, but of all Fijians. He reminded them that Indo-Fijians did not wish to separate themselves from the Itauke brothers and sisters. In speaking for the Indo community, he told the chiefs, I quote, "Fiji is our home. Fiji is our only home. We have no other, and we want no other." End quote. The principal Itauke statutes will be reviewed. These include the Itauke Affairs Act, Itauke Lands Act, the Itauke Lands Trust Act, Itauke Trust Fund Act, and the Itauke Development Fund Act. This will position relevant institutions to deliver their mandates efficiently and effectively. The Itauke institutions will be reviewed. Institutions such as the Itauke Affairs Board and provincial Tikena and village councils will be strengthened. The Itauke Lands and Fisheries Commission, the Itauke Lands Trust Board, the Itauke Trust Fund Board, and the Center for Appropriate Technology and Development will also be reviewed. Again, the aim is to enable effective service delivery consistent with the government's mandate in accordance with the universal standards of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples and the ILO Convention 169 on the right of Indigenous and tribal peoples. Our prime objective is to improve the economic position of the Itauke and lift the living standards of villages and settlements. The Itauke recognizes that it is in the national interest of the Itauke to increase their involvement in commerce. To help achieve this, an inaugural Itauke Resource Owners Forum will bring together resource owners and advisors with the necessary expertise to develop a roadmap for moving forward. This is an example of the inclusive approach that government will continue to embrace. On the health sector, the government is drafting plans for the revival of medical and hospital services by improving and maintaining facilities, service, skills training, and patient care. Functional divisional command centers will strengthen service delivery and coordination of grassroots health programs. emphasis will be given to better access to electricity, connectivity, and water. Community engagement and ownership are seen as key to attaining better health service coverage. There will be a particular emphasis on improving services at divisional and sub-divisional hospitals. Effectively managing the diabetes crisis is a priority for the government, as well as dealing with the prevalence of other non-communicable diseases. These ailments account for 85% of all the deaths in Fiji. The education system will be directed towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals and for children and tertiary students to reach their full potential. The recent back-to-school support program underscored the government's commitment to helping families with education costs. A major undertaking is the establishment of an education commission to review the entire education system in the country and make recommendations for the improvement in the quality of teaching and leadership of our school system and the curriculum to meet the needs of our labour market. Government will then convene an education summit, bringing together all stakeholders to consider the recommendations of the Education Commission and formulate a national education policy. The government is moving to rebuild Fiji's relationship with the University of the South Pacific while maintaining synergy with the University of Fiji and the Fiji National University in meeting labour market demand. Policies for the ongoing development of young people in sport are central to the overall well-being of the nation. The government is committed to ensure that youth have access to knowledge, skills, training, so that they can effectively participate and contribute to nation building. Enhancement of sports facilities will attract more international sporting events and tournaments to our shore, positioning Fiji as the Pacific's sporting hub. The revival of the Rural Outer Island Development Program, ROI, will boost the socio-economic development for our rural setting. The program will be directed at income-generating projects, improved infrastructure, and better services, including affordable, cyclone-resistant housing, power and water supplies, sanitation, systems, and livelihoods. There will be improved coordination for disaster preparedness, response, recovery, operations, and mitigation. Government will continue its efforts to end violence against women and girls and promote women's economic empowerment. The government is determined that the needs and interests of women and girls will be reflected in the legislation, policies, and the national budget. There will be continuing emphasis on child protection with the ultimate objective of establishing a Department for Children. Funding for the poverty benefit, social pension, and disability schemes and bus fare subsidy will continue. Government will adopt a new targeting strategy to ensure the most vulnerable are assisted and protected. A poverty monitoring unit will monitor and report on poverty alleviation efforts in various government agencies. At national level, agriculture will ensure all citizens have access to safe and nutritious food and that farmers have guaranteed incomes from both local and export markets. Inclusive agricultural policies for young people and women will be strengthened along with development of specific commodities. Farmers will be encouraged to work in clusters to facilitate access to markets, finance, training, and technology. In March, government will host the Pacific Week of Agriculture. This will bring together regional agricultural leaders and experts, promote alliances, mobilize donor support, and lead to joint efforts to foster food security. The Public Works Department is to be reintroduced. Maintenance and upgrading of rural roads and river crossings will be a priority for the PWD. It will also be responsible for rural water, electrification, and sanitation services. The people are suffering due to regular power and water cuts. Government will put in place necessary measures to address these long-standing issues and challenges. Government will re-establish the tripartite forum comprising of the government, employers, and trade unions. It will play a pivotal role in issuing issues relating to employment, productivity, and industrial relations. The reinstatement of tripartite wages council to determine the minimum wage for different sectors of the economy will be given priority. The Ratu Wiliame Partnership Program, government will work closely with the Australian government to improve opportunities for labour mobility. Government will ensure public enterprises to follow the rules of transparency, good governance and accountability in their respective operations. A specialist review of Fiji's defence and security systems will be undertaken. This will include the finalizing of national security strategy and the introduction of a related Defence Council bill to provide the necessary legal framework. Review of defence-related legislation is also a priority. Fiji's border security is to be enhanced and harmonized with relevant international treaties. Government will accede to the Arms Trade Treaty and International Convention on Maritime Search and Rescue after a requisite parliamentary process is undertaken. The existing national security architecture will be reinvigorated. The government will maintain the national focus on the critical issues of climate change and the environment. There will be emphasis on the aspects where Fiji can make the most impact locally, in the region and internationally. Communities will be encouraged to work with the government in cleaning up the local environment and surrounding. Our foreign policy will focus on restoring confidence and unity among our Pacific Island Forum member countries and building stronger relationships with friendly countries. This is of special significance at a time of maneuvering by major powers for influence in the Pacific. Media legislation will be reviewed to strengthen freedom of the press and the people's right to information. The government is taking a strong position on this, along with the respect for civil rights and freedoms. An announcement will be made soon on 2 new public holidays. This includes a public holiday to commemorate the arrival in Fiji in 1879 of the Girimateas, whose descendants are an integral part of our nation. In addition, a national holiday marking the life and achievements of Ratu Wiliame will be gazetted. In moving forward, our focus now is to build bridges and bring unity among our different communities to work together as one people and one nation. To grow the economy, we must increase the size of the pie by diversifying our resources, resource-based sectors that give us the greatest potential and opportunities. We must continue to improve on our infrastructure to meet the demands of a modern Fiji and our social services, particularly on health and education. We must continue to be improved to meet the current and future needs of this nation. Our vulnerability is increased severity, and the frequency of natural disasters due to climate change cannot be ignored. We must continue to put into place mitigation and adaptation strategies with support from international communities. The change in our government gives rise to the opportunity to bring our nation together and start afresh. To the Honourable Speaker, members of Cabinet, members of the loyal opposition, and members of Parliament, I congratulate you on being called to serve Fiji and her people. I urge you to deliberate with intentions, advocate with thoughtfulness and inclusivity, and debate with respect and fairness. In all that you do, deliver your sacred duty to the people of Fiji. It is my hope and prayer that you must all work together for the betterment of our nation in cooperation and unity. It has been my honor today to outline to you the plans and policies of the People's Coalition Government. I pray that the Almighty God will bless the members of this august House in your preparations for debate on what I have put out before you today. May the people of this land that we love to be the ultimate beneficiaries for your collective wisdom. I wish you all the greatest success for this year. It is now my duty and great honor to declare the 2023-2024 parliamentary session open. May God bless us all. May God bless Fiji. Nawalimbe. Thank you very much.
Honourable members of the Judiciary and Honourable members of Parliament, His Excellency the President has addressed the Parliament. Honourable members of the Judiciary and Honourable members of Parliament, His Excellency the President will now take his leave and will be escorted by the Honourable Speaker and the Honourable Leader of the Government in Parliament. Please be upstanding as His Excellency the President departs the Parliament chambers. Honourable members of the Judiciary and Honourable members of Parliament, you may now be seated.